And are you still painting, Salvatore? Do you still continue?
Absolutely. I mean, are you still breathing? Of course I'm still painting. Absolutely. Yes, I paint every day. I paint every day. I've just completed a circle. I'm doing a series on the daylight from dawn to night and morning to do with the Australian flowers in the landscape, wildflowers. And each circle is 100 feet long.
Wow.
So I've done my third circle. I'm doing two more. It'll be afternoon and then night. And so my aim now is to transform my sensation of colour, the beauty of the flowers, the sound of our native birds here, and the actual scent, the perfume into paint. That to me is very, very exciting. Which I'm doing right now, my friend, right now.
This is a wonderful,
Good.
An inspiring story. I read that when you were seriously ill in hospital in your late 20s, you were inspired by the King James Bible to commit to painting.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah, you wanted to paint all 150 Psalms.
Which I'm going to.
Where are you up to?
Yeah, I'm up to 110 at the moment.
Wow, isn't that wonderful?
That's something which I feel I must do because at that moment of great despair in my late youth, I was 28 then, the best of youth, I was hit by this sort of autoimmune condition and I didn't know what happened to me. I was the fear of dying and my passion for painting, and I read the Psalms, which is the best Bible, King James, because it's beautiful English, wonderful words, very inspiring, and so I use still the same Bible, which I got from the hospital. I use that book and I look at that and read that and I read the Psalm and one verse, one line inspires my imagination to create the images about the Psalms, about God. It's about you and I. It's about the human condition, the Psalms, remember? It's about how you and I respond to life. And so now, because now I've discovered the bush and the light here, I'll be looking at the Psalms through the eyes of the landscape, the Australian bush here, which is just so magnificent. It's magic, pure magic.
I recall your work on a large scale. I think at the old Sydney Morning Herald building in Sydney, there was a large mural. There's always been a great religious influence in your work, and I'm wondering if now you reconcile that with a sense of spirituality that you get from the Australian bush. Do you see the connection between the two?
That's because, you see, looking at the bush and looking at the flowers, the wildflowers here, that to me is the most wonderful image, what we call the idea about God, this great God creation of nature. And what more can we have before us to understand the wonder of creation, the wonder of nature? That to me goes beyond any convention about God or anything else, because it's there before us. Once we see that, we become part of this wonderful creation, which you can say it's God or Christ, whatever, or Buddha. It's this marvelous excitement that we are able to see and feel and transmit my feeling, my vision onto canvas, whether it's the flower or the landscape or a person. But now it's become more and more the landscape than ever, more.
When you were growing up, Salvatore, can you remember your childhood years in Italy compared to how they were in Australia? What were your influences in either country?
Okay. Well, as a child there, I was there, as I said before, with my family and being the youngest, among my sisters and brothers. So it was a very much closed group of people where I would go to my grandfather's farm with my mother or my sister. And so I must have soaked in my psyche the landscape and the hills of Calabria. But it was a very sort of, as I said before, I was a very young 9-year-old child. Now, we didn't have those computers, that sort of stuff. So we're very much in touch with the earth, I think. Then coming to Australia, that was the most exciting part, because here I was, age of 9, didn't know a word of English. But because I was the only child in Seaforth, Belgala area who was a non-English background, and the name Salvatore was very exotic, I'd made friends very quickly. And they could see my teachers then in, say, 3A or 3B or whatever, primary school. Instead of going, learning about geography or English, they could see I had this passion for drawing. And so my teacher then would call me to go to the blackboard and draw the landscape of the earth or some country. And then I would go out into the into the schoolyard and draw the trees and the magpies. So I was allowed to, which is very rare, to have this great freedom.
Oh, wow.
And it was very exciting.
And what artists do you still admire today?
Lots and lots of art. Above all, I admire great craftsmanship. Drawing is so vital. And what I find today in the art world, this lack of drawing, understanding, they don't. I say to people, if you can't draw, you can't paint. Drawing is the most important thing to express your spirit. So you must have that in you. So the people I admire, I swing. One day I might say Cézanne, Picasso, any painter who has had this great commitment and vision of colour, I would respond to. So I've had, of course, influenced by people like, as a child, let me tell you, at primary school, I discovered this wonderful book of Leonardo da Vinci his drawings. And so I used to hog that book from the library for months. And so Leonardo was really my idol to be able to draw like him. I used him as my role model in drawing to this very day. I think Leonardo da Vinci is really a great artist, and above all, that guy was a genius, a true genius. And that's what people say to people, if there are gods among men, he'll be there on the top crown. Da Vinci is a god like among the other men in the world of life.
Apart from the visual arts, what other arts have influenced you? What about your musical influences, or theatre, or film, or literature?
Classical music and poetry. When I'm painting, I could be playing a Beethoven symphony or quartet, or a Mahler symphony, or a Messiaen, modern composer Messiaen, Ravel, Debussy, and I find that gets me really on my track. I just really start flying then, And poetry, John Keats, Dylan Thomas, wonderful poets. You can go even earlier, Virgil. I love all great literature, whether it's poetry, philosophy, but above all, it's poetry and classical music. I could be listening all day, which I do actually, play these various composers which really I find so inspiring and so rich in wonderful feeling, and inspires me to put that colour even more like as I'm dancing on the canvas,
Wow, beautiful image.
Wow. Oh, we're so lucky to be speaking with you today, Salvatore.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You're inspiring us, inspiring all of our listeners too.
Thank you.
Do you have a sense of your own place in Australian art? Do you feel that you've made your own mark within the Australian culture?
Absolutely. Yes, of course I do. Yes, very much so. You look at my work, look at other people's work, you can tell what painting is like, how to paint, how to draw, composition, imagination. It's all there before you. And listen, look, I tell you, listen, the other day at my exhibition at Macquarie University, and Stuart Purvis, my agent, I did show my circle, midday circle, 100 feet long, and I was surprised and pleased to see they had a lot of students from the art school going there, looking at the work and asking questions, how I applied the paint and the colours. And that to me is very rewarding. That to me is more important than making a sale, to see younger people in the 20s to go along and be so taken by the image which I've created and to inspire them. That to me is very exciting, very rewarding.